Hi everyone. I had somebody asking about my techniques and they were struggling with it a little bit, so I'm going to use a scrap paper and try to show you what I've done specifically on this painting and how much water I use. So jumping right in. This is called charging. It's when you put your water on your paint. When you put water on your paper, and then you drop color into it, and then you drop more color into it, and that's what charging is. And what you're doing is, and what I always use that method. I very rarely mix anything on my palette. I use the colors straight out of the tube and I mix on the paper. So this is just a really old painting that I was trying some different things on, tried some markers and they bled through, so but it's good to work for what I'm doing right now to demonstrate. And I think I'll just draw a strawberry. And show you some of the technique. Maybe you want them a little fatter. Okay. So before I start on that, I'm going to go ahead and show you the amount of water that I've used on the rooster painting. Okay, so what I do is I wet my brush and I use a sailboat. There are people that use synthetics, and I understand their reasoning for that, but I just do so much better, I feel, when I use a sailboat. So anyway, you do have to like soak your brush and let the fibers swell up, and or the hair shaft swell up, and they'll hold the water. So you just take a minute when you start, wet your brush and let it start soaking that up. And then this is too much water. My usual technique is I do this and then I go, and I don't think that's probably the thing you're supposed to do, but that's just how I paint. I go against the edge of my cup and get some of that water out. And then I just start making random, like the comb on the rooster, you just make random shapes on your paper. You don't really, you don't do a solid line like this. And I always use rough paper by Arches. I just feel like that does so much better for me. Okay, and now I'm picking up some of my red and I'm just dropping it in. And I mean, already you can kind of see that looks like a rooster comb. Now this, if you do it, you just don't get the same effect at all. And I mean, it's workable, you could do it, but I find that that adds a lot more interest to the painting with the white space showing. And I like to leave a lot of white space in my paintings. Okay, now, charging is if you decide that you want, say, let's go with some purple. You wanted to darken it in areas, then you just drop your purple in. And that's what charging is. And then you just let your watercolor do its work. That's the beauty of watercolor, is that it just has basically a mind of its own. And the beauty of it is that it just flows and makes interesting patterns and shapes, and I really love it. I love watercolor. Okay, I'm going to do 2 strawberries here as a demonstration on what to do and what not to do. So I like the shape of this one better. So this will be what not to do up here. What not to do is, again, just put water all over the whole thing and not use a hit and miss pattern. And it's going to flow everywhere if you do that, as you can see. So on this, strawberries have, I'm going to use a little bit of color so that you can see what I'm doing as a pattern. And again, how much water that I'm using. So just lightly with this, a little bit of yellow. And the rough paper, again, just really works with you because it has deeper holes and adds more texture and interest. And I think that's just my favorite paper to use. It's really beautiful. And I probably wouldn't do this whole thing, but since I'm using water to show you, I'm going to just go ahead and kind of lay out the whole strawberry. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of water on here, but it's not, I'm able to control it. Okay, so what you do at that point, you don't put more water on your brush, but you go in and get some pigment, and I want yellow for up here, and you just drop some in, and I feel like sometimes there's maybe like a tad of green and a strawberry, so I'm just going to pick a little bit up and just make it more interesting. And there, I did not wet this first, so it kind of was a mistake. Use a duller green than I was using. This is a sap green. This is working wet and wet, and I'm going to go with my let's see, M. Graham Naphtha Red. It's a real bright red. I'm just dropping it into the wet. You just don't have to be real careful with it at this point. I've not added more water to my brush. And even if you pick up your paint and you feel like it has too much water, just tap it on a paper towel or an old washcloth or towel. I think maybe I want a little bit of rosy color in there, so I'm picking up some of my Daniel Smith, I think it's called Rose. And now I'm going to go to my Cotman, it's a violet. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit of my neutral tint because it has the little black seeds in it. Let's add a little bit. And I mean, we're not really, this is more abstract. We're not painting a seed. We're just giving the impression of it. And I feel like we need a little more red, so I'm doing a pretty creamy mix of that. And I'm going to add some ultramarine to my sap green so that I have a little darker green here. After it's dry, you can go in and erase some of those lines if you don't like them. I'm used to working with my water sitting right there. And that was just wet on dry right there. You just kind of wing it however I'm feeling at the time. And then after it dries completely, if you want to go in and maybe, you know, do like a little darker reds or the violet around some of these little white spots to give more of the impression of the seeds and holes in it. And even on the stem there, you can define those leaves a little more if you want to. But that's basically how I do my paintings. I never make even, like if you watch my tutorials with my animal paintings, I never just make a, you know, a big flat spot of water. I always use some kind of a pattern. Like on the rooster for his feathers, it was like, okay, I'm just going to create the impression of a feather. I'm going to use some paint so you can see what I did when I was applying the water. And I just made like a little line and then kind of some little jags off of it, zigzags or whatever. And then I went back in and dropped my color in. And that was on the final part there, after the first big washy part where I blew it with the straw to spread it and that type of thing. But it gives you an idea of how much, like, this is my water right out without dabbing in. And it's just real, that's going to be really hard to control. So too much water, then it's always easier to add, like say that's not really enough for what I was doing on that painting, but I would probably use that amount for certain things. So if you see that it's really not enough and it's not going to flow like you want, just go ahead and add a little. It's easier to add because then, and it's not that hard to remove. I mean, if you get it on your paper and I do that and I say, okay, that's a lot of water. Just rinse your brush, dry it off, and then just pick up the water, dab it on a towel. Pick up the water, but it's still not going to be as appealing, I don't think, as because it's kind of spread around more, but it's something that you can, you know, if you get too much on, definitely just use your brush and pick it up. You can use a Q-tip, the corner of a paper towel, something like that. But I just want to show you the difference. First of all, the amount of water that I use and the technique, and then the difference between painting something in solid and painting something with, you know, like a little bit of a pattern. And on my animal paintings, I use this technique all the time. And when it's dry, I go back over it and add more color, and it really adds dimension and texture that I really enjoy. Okay, well, I hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching.